I know you guys are tired of Weaver Beats' misinformation and propaganda just to spew negativity to try to get clicks to his videos because he wants to get paid through Google AdSense. In this video, we're going to listen to the CEO talk with Andy Mack, CEO of inMusic, talk to Andy Mack, and we're going to expound upon and look at what he's actually saying behind what he's saying from my perspective. I'm a business owner. We've been training 1 million producers around the world. Some have gone to work with Drake, Kanye West, Post Malone, Ariana Grande, French Montana, Young Thug, Polo G, Trippie Ray, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, Glorilla. We have 3 confirmed Grammy winners and multi-platinum plaque winning producers around the world. Okay, so I've run business. We have a software company. I have a SaaS company. We have a training company. I've done live events. And so I have a different perspective. Weaver Beats, respectively, actually not even respectfully, you just are speaking on things you don't have experience about, and you're making companies look crazy. Okay, so you just need to stop commenting on business stuff, period. Okay, now there's one thing to look at it with a consumer lens, but you guys got to get facts at some point. Okay, so we're going to listen to this interview. This is on inmusicbrands.com. I'll link it below to give credit to the actual video, which Weaver Beats did not do in his video. And I'm pulling up Weaver Beats because he tends to talk about a lot of companies from Moog to Native Instruments. You do not have a company. Why are you speaking on companies like you know how to run a company? And the video is titled, "It's So Over for Native Instruments." And you're completely wrong. And he doesn't even link the actual website where you guys can actually do your own research. So always keep in mind that these people who want, people to click their video never give you guys the source. You know why? Because when you see the truth, you're like, oh, why are we watching him? He doesn't know what he's talking about. So here is Andy Mack. Shout out to Andy Mack over at Akai, sitting with Jack O'Donnell. And let's click it up here. He's the CEO of inMusic, by the way.
Tell me more about that.
Oops, sorry, my bad, y'all. I had this on 2x speed. Let's put this back on regular speed.
We're talking.
I want to start off just having an understanding of, inMusic and, and your passion about brands and the industry and technology. Tell me more about that.
Andy, how often do we talk?
All the time.
Yeah.
Literally.
All right, I want to point out a couple things just because people who haven't run companies don't understand how important what he just said was. The CEO, of inMusic, who runs multiple brands worth millions and millions of dollars. It's not just the revenue they're pulling in, it's the amount of employees they have and the amount of layers of communication. And the CEO saying, hey, how often do I talk to Andy Mack, the most in the trenches person I know in this entire side of Andy Mack? Here's the one thing I'll say as a compliment. Andy Mack, even though he works with these companies, he doesn't feel like a company person. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, a lot of people that approach BusyWorks Beats, for example, they're always like, hey, I work at, whatever company. Will you do this thing for us? And it's just like always feeling like they're trying to take from us. Andy Mack feels like he is us, and he just happens to be aligned with the company, and he knows the frustrations of content creators and making music. He's for real the person. So a perfect representative in these companies. So I want to shout out Andy Mack because it's like impossible to find somebody who's creative and business minded at the same time. So when the CEO is saying, how often do we talk? All the time. The person at the top of the pyramid talks to the person in the trenches all the time. That means he's tied into the actual perspective of the consumer. So that first little sentence, even though that probably went over everybody's head, means a lot. Okay. Again, he has probably hundreds of employees and layers of management. So the fact that he's talking to the guy, that means infinitely a lot.
What do we talk about?
Product.
Yeah, all the time. I love product. I love this industry. There's two.
Now, and again, what Weaver Beats does is he doesn't understand things. You speak out of ignorance, Weaver Beats. So just stop speaking on company stuff. What you're doing, Weaver Beats, is creating fear, with the consumers so that they're more skeptical to deal with companies because they feel like, okay, if the company is not going to have longevity, then why invest in the product? Okay, Weaver Beats, you need to hush because you really are spreading fear and you're spreading misinformation and you're spreading ignorance. So the CEO, there's 2 types of CEOs for people who want an education here. You have the CEOs who raise money and they're all about sales and marketing. And you have the CEOs who are the product people. Okay. So when Jack O'Donnell is saying, I love product. Okay. Even though people are trying to say stuff in Weaver Beats saying he sounds like the McDonald's CEO talking about, I love the product. He's saying he is a product CEO, but that went over your heads because you're listening to a goofball Weaver Beats who doesn't know what he's talking about. You have 2 types of people, who run companies. You either have a person who just buys up companies and just holds them and just is a great investor, or you have a person who is actually in the trenches, makes the product, okay, and wants to acquire other companies to make a better product. Because when you acquire other companies, you get their best workers, you get their technology, you get their proprietary IP, and you can now infuse that into what you're doing. And if you guys think that they're not using AI on this level, we're talking about a company worth, I don't even know how much they're worth, but you guys think they're not using AI behind the scenes and going to revive Native Instruments using native, whether it's AI up front or AI used in the back. You guys really think they're not going to use AI? Now, that's my perspective as a CEO, because there's so much leverage. If you guys read, the article by Anthropic, which I can only assume Weaverbeats did not read. Okay, so this is by Anthropic, and it's called the Risk Report. This was launched August 2026, recently, probably in the last week. And in this article, it talks about how it's 186 pages. I don't expect everybody to read every single page. The gist is, companies are finding more leverage with AI. So the same, instead of having a 15-person team, you can now knock that team down to 3 people and get the same output. So essentially your output has multiplied 5 times. 3 people, okay, can now compete with 15-person teams. The 3 people using AI can now compete with 15-person teams, which means now the output is 5 times per person. So when you see news of inMusic, what was the news that Bolo was reporting on? Let me find it. Okay, so here's the article by Music Radar. It says inMusic reportedly closes down Native Instruments UK office as senior leadership exits the company. Now, that's not a bad thing. Now, for a beginner, you're going to see somebody's leaving the company. That's bad news. They're shutting down an office. You guys got to realize the greatest expense to a company is mostly the headcount, is mostly the payroll. If I can remove, like I said, if I can have a 3-person team that can do the work of 15 people, I don't need to keep paying 15 people, especially when that's taking away from reinvesting into the product. Because again, the greatest expense you guys have as company owners is people. And most people who get into these companies, it's all just nepotism and just like friends of friends who hire each other. And a lot of people aren't outputting what they should be outputting. And as a person who runs a small company, not anywhere near the size of what Jack O'Donnell's running, okay? But as a small company, I could tell you guys, hiring employees is a little frustrating sometimes, because you're paying somebody thousands of dollars a month and they're finding ways to not do the work. They're being more creative not doing the work than just doing the work. And it's so frustrating as a CEO who's trying to put in $1, get $1.5 back or get $2 back. You got to keep your machine going. And when you see people trying to not that they're stealing, but they're stealing your time, they're not really putting in the effort, and they are still getting by, you have to get rid of those people because they're holding down everybody else. The C players who enter your company are going to influence the A players to play at the B level. So now your greatest technicians, your greatest experts are now like, why would I go hard when the C players are being rewarded the same way? So yes, you do have to remove people and branches so that you get rid of the excess waste. And I'm not saying, I don't know the internal parts of the UK office, okay? So I don't know the expert that was there. But the point is, he had to make a decision. We need better product. We acquired a company to, earn more money. Okay, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but my point is to say all that just because an office is closing is not negative news. So when I saw Weaverbeats, again, trying to spin everything into the negative, you're just ignorant. You don't know what you're talking about. Let's continue the interview.
Company. Can you speak more about that?
We hear the criticism that maybe we're too big, we have too many companies. Perhaps legitimate.
All right, so he's about to explain why they're, creating a holding company that controls all these companies. And because he's a product CEO, what he's saying has a completely different lens than what Weaverbeats is trying to say.
But I think in many cases, the companies we've acquired have a new life and they bring out new products, things that may not have occurred without the acquisition.
In other words, instead of competing 2 different brands and keep, creating the same kind of product that kind of looks like the same thing, why not merge the company and create something novel? Okay, the same way you can have jazz and funk compete for the radio spins, jazz, funk. Okay, what are we going to listen to on the radio, jazz or funk? It's always like this or that. But what happens if you merge the two and fuse them, and now you have funky jazz? Okay, so now it's a whole new genre by merging 2 existing things. So instead of competing for resources, they said, how do we create a novel outcome by merging the 2? And that's how I see what he just said.
So really, I'm very proud of the family of companies we put together.
All right, so he continues about the family of companies. Very important that he says a family of companies, because in a family, there's relation between the companies. They're not competing.
Things that may not have occurred without the acquisition. So really, I'm very proud of the family of companies we put together. And I think every one of those brands have benefited from us. They've grown in a direction that they maybe couldn't have grown without us.
Okay, so he's a product guy. When, again, what Weaver Beats doesn't comprehend is when you're a CEO and you acquire a company, you're not just doing it just for the customer base. That's one portion of why a company might acquire another company. It's because you want the technology. It's because you want the people who actually work at the other company. So instead of trying to compete against them and try to win that game, you say, why not just merge? And now we work together instead of working apart, and now create something special. So again, he's a product guy. So a lot of his language is very product. Let me find another key point in this interview here. So here's the part where he gives confidence to the consumers that just because they acquired them doesn't mean they're not going to have their same identity and brand and stamp.
Without us. They've grown in a direction that's very independent for each brand. It's not like we homogenize those brands. They're unique. They stay unique. They get our support and they grow. Native Instruments.
So what he's saying, to dumb it down a little bit, what he's saying is that when he acquires companies, he doesn't just make the new company take on the face of the old, or not the old company, but the acquiring company. So it still has its own, seemingly independent or identity that people can latch to. So it's not like we're going to be fusing and forcing people to like the way Akai works, if they're Native Instruments supporters. So let me find more key points in this interview. So again, what I love about the CEO being transparent in this interview is that it explains so many things for people who have actually done business with Native Instruments. For example, behind the scenes, guys, I worked with Native Instruments to release a contact library. So I had to pay them a license fee to generate licenses. And it was this process of going back and forth in order to get the artwork for the contact library on their servers and all this stuff. It was convoluted. I'm not going to lie. It was very convoluted, especially when I wasn't that deep into coding. This is kind of the things that nudged me into learning coding, was how complex that process was to get it NKS ready, to get all the graphics ready, all the audio ready. There was no like linear, it was a little more broken of a process than what I would have expected. And I paid a lot of money to get my stuff released through the contact ecosystem. So what the CEO is going to reveal here is how moving forward, how that system is going to work. So this is really good news for people who want to partner with Native Instruments specifically.
Things were probably put on hold because of the situation that was going on. Where do you foresee contact going, which, as we know, is the industry standard sample player that everyone uses?
Well, I've already gotten some windows into the plans that our engineers want for contact, and they're very strong. And I think probably the first thing I'd say is they want to expose more of the creators when you put your VSTs in sample, and that's.
So I think from what I'm understanding him saying so far, he's basically saying like a more artist based approach. Like, for example, if I have 2 million libraries of contact, it's just based on the sound that I want. But what if we did something unique where it's like, okay, we have the BusyWorks Beats library, or the BusyWorks Beats trap library, or whatever. So now it's branded around BusyWorks Beats, and it has more of a soul identity than just another string library or just another bass library. So now people aren't picking the sound category, they're picking the person. That's what I think he's saying, but I might be wrong. I don't know.
Good. They shouldn't be hiding behind a wall of NI. They should be liberated to show that they created that. And, times have changed, and I think it probably served them very well when we first started with contact, but now times have changed, and I'd like to see more openness. I'd also like to see, and they do too, want to see an ease in development so that anyone wanting to get on contact can do it in a more efficient, quicker way.
So again, when you don't have the background details to understand what he's saying, the previous way, because I'm an actual person who partnered up with them to do this for our library called Narcos. So it was an arduous process. I'm not here to expose the process, but it was a matter of uploading a bunch of audio. I had to upload a lot of images, and I wasn't a Photoshop pro. So it was a lot of images that I normally wouldn't have to develop, but I had to develop very specific images for their system for it to work across their NKS platforms. I had to learn all these little details about just UI and like all the stuff you would just never think you would get into creating a small, simple sound library. They taught me a lot. And it was just very arduous. And I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with the person who was handling that process. And I know they got sick of me because I didn't know everything that I was doing back in the day. So I'm assuming that what he's referring to or alluding to is that system of onboarding partners will be a lot smoother, because there was a lot of friction, especially for a beginner who's good at sound design. I wasn't, coding expert at that time. And all I knew was how to create a background image. I used a simple script. I didn't have anything too complex, but just getting your instrument, you would think it's simple, but getting your instrument into the the native access platform and in the NKS format it was more arduous than you guys may think.
And they have plans for that. So there's going to be some subtle and big changes to Contact. I'm going to go along with what they have plans already and see what we can do from
Let's see if we can find some more talking points here from this interview.
See what we can do.
Here's a great talking point.
Because they do have plans for Contact.
Native Instruments moved into the hardware part of our industry a number of years ago, and compelling controllers that integrate with complete machine software. Where do you see the market moving towards with native hardware?
Well, I think many things are just open to them. Of course, there's going to be a new S series coming.
So he's basically saying there's going to be more hardware. And the reason this is important is, if you guys remember in the beginning of the interview, Andy Mack refers to, or I don't know if it's the beginning of this or maybe I didn't get there yet, but just being in the world of AI. Like, how does a company survive the world of AI? And a lot of AI experts are basically saying the way you survive that as a tech company is not just have the world's best tech. You want to have some kind of physical hardware that can't be duplicated with code, because even in Anthropic's report that I just showed you guys, coding is at extreme risk. We're talking about top level engineers getting, wiped out from just the AI advancing itself in coding. So coding, because that's advancing so fast, you don't need as many technical experts anymore who wanted super high salaries. And, I understand it's frustrating to be in that field, but imagine a company now doesn't have to pay 10 technicians at $100K a year. They just saved $1 million, plus they can output 3 times as much with the leverage of AI in terms of the software. But the hardware is where people can't just duplicate it. You can't just go online and say, make me a Native Instruments MKS or whatever controllers they have. They can't do it. Okay, so the fact that there's a physicality to it means they have a moat against AI. That's very important in this future of Native Instruments.
And they already have some plans for those, and we're going to execute on those plans.
Okay, so he's committed to getting that hardware pushed out. So let's see what else is in this interview. So again, it's little things about a technical CEO that are really important. This is showing a reason why inMusic is so long-standing, is because if they have somebody like this behind the reins who really cares about the product, they understand the point of the business, which is to add value to the customer, and over time that value increases them, and then they come back to exchange even more value. So listen to what he says. It's a very small detail, but it's something to point out as a great attribute of a great leader.
Now, if you look at what we've done with Akai, I'll use that as an example. People with 10-year-old machines get an update and they feel like they have a brand new machine. That may not be the best business decision, but it is great for our customers, our musicians, our creators. And we'd like to continue that with native.
Okay, so what he's saying is, for example, I'm filming this camera, my webcam, with my iPhone 11. Okay, so I haven't updated in a long time. I think they're on iPhone 17 now, I can't remember. But I still get updates on my phone, which make my iPhone 11 feel very modern. So from what I'm hearing him say as the CEO, he's saying even if somebody didn't spend more money with us, we're still adding value to them over the years through the software. So he's saying we dominate the hardware, or I'm saying this from my perspective. If I were him, I would say we can dominate the hardware world, and then the software can be our leverage, because we can leverage AI development. We can leverage small teams to output way more now. So software is not going to be considered the heaviest cost. The heaviest cost is the hardware and the risk with hardware. So let's dominate the hardware side, because anybody can do the software side. So why make the software the main focal point? I don't know if I'm articulating my point correctly, but I guess what I'm saying is they're not forcing people into the next hardware and the next thing. Same. If you guys look at other companies, I'll say, I'm not going to name companies, but you guys know the companies, okay, where you update your system and now you got to pay $50 more for the same plugin. Okay. To me, as a software developer, that is like insane. Like if you buy a plugin of mine and I come out with the Future Edition, you're going to get the Future Edition for free. It does not cost me much to deliver that Future Edition. It costs me less than a penny, probably, for you to download that, way less than a penny. So there's no really justifiable reason outside of just trying to milk people, these companies who make you purchase updates. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that unless it's like something really, really different, why are we constantly charging the customer for the same product? And it seems like he holds that same philosophy, but I understand that he still has to run a business too. But so I think that's a good mindset to have, is focus on delivering value over time. The same way Grand Theft Auto, they dropped GTA 5, but they kept adding value to GTA 5 online over 10 years. And it became one of the greatest IPs in the world because of that. Same with the Apple iPhone. They dropped the iPhone 11. I'm still getting updates for free on the Apple iPhone, and it feels like a new phone. And eventually I'm going to get another Apple iPhone. It's just not right this second. So he's playing the long game, is my point.
One of our strengths.
So when the acquisition is completed, what can the community expect?
Well, as I said, I like the term merger, but yes, after that is done, I think they can be assured of continuity. That's the first.
So again, a small little tell. So he said he likes to position this acquisition as a merger, because he's not saying we're trying to acquire them to, get them out the way, or acquire them to, pick apart the pieces. Until it's just, we're bringing the technology, we're bringing the employees, we're bringing the expertise, we're bringing the community, into our bigger ecosystem. And now we're going to add more value so that company can actually have a more formidable approach. So again, there's other creators out there trying to spin this narrative. Weaver Beats, like I said, is one of those creators. It's always focusing on the negative, doesn't have information, is super ignorant, never run a company, but has so much to say about companies and doesn't know what he's talking about.
Things, security, that what they have will continue. The changes we're going to do for improvements and what the engineers want to do will evolve over time. Hopefully some of the things will happen quickly, but they're going to have everything they've depended on securely available to them in the future. That's probably
so he's saying he's given them the foundation, the support they need to actually thrive. He's not just stripping the bones away from a carcass, okay, waiting for it to die. He's saying they're adding new life by giving the inMusic foundation to a company so they can build upon that garden. Okay, so let's see what else is in this interview. It looks like about 3 minutes left here. So very important what he says here.
The music world in a great many ways. Just like with Akai, we respect where it came from, and we grow from there.
And I got to say, Akai is one of the companies that does it extremely well. I don't know how they figured it out, but they figured out how to not feel like a company. It feels like you're just adding value to yourself. It doesn't feel like this company is just trying to take money out of my pockets. It feels like, wow, I get to be a part of this community. That's what Akai feels like, the MPC. I even have an MPC sample because of just videos from Andy Mack, from Teddy Riley. Shout out to Teddy Riley and them. And just getting everybody just talking about it. Bolo is the main reason I got this MPC sample, the way he showed me what you could do with this thing. I'm going to be sound designing with this by recording stuff through the microphone and doing unique sound design with the MPC sample. Me and my son play with that all the time. And I felt like I was a part of a community when I was purchasing that. So my status increased as I purchased the MPC sample. I wasn't just buying a drum groove machine. I was buying into a community. And that's what Akai did super well. And that's why I got to respect Andy Mack and the CEO, Jack O'Donnell, for having that type of communication, because it shows that from the top to the bottom, and I don't mean the bottom in terms of like lower status. I mean, somebody who's in the trenches is talking to the top and they fully understand each other. And that's a good thing, okay? Because rarely does that happen. I can tell you countless times where these companies have no idea how to talk to content creators. They just treat them like free press and treat them like just stuff to step on. And that's why the other companies don't last. So this is important that there's a technical CEO that's not just a salesperson, okay?
We will respect all the elements of NI, and hopefully, as we move forward, it will be a better company than it ever was. mince words.
So he says something
I
important
do
here.
think that it's more a merger than an acquisition, because they have so many things that are first in class, best in class, that we're going to learn from. And
okay, see, he just said it. They have so many things that are best in class that they can learn from. That's what a CEO who's playing a bigger game. You know, he's building Megatron. Okay, he's not just building a small little robot body. He's building, you know, a robot full of robots. Okay, that's the bigger vision. So we got to respect that the CEO can even handle that many brands, and two, that they're this hands-on. I talked with an owner of a film studio called Malahat Studios off of Vancouver Island, somewhere over in that direction. I forget exactly where it is. And she was saying how, you know, the project costs like $100 million to invest in that film studio. And I was like, how in the world did you manage to understand a company that deep, like to where you can comprehend $100 million worth of funding for your operation? And basically she said, I have to know everything from the general construction. I have to know the gaffing tape people. I have to know the swimming pools that they use in film. She knew everything about that studio. It wasn't like she was just this hands-off person. She was in the trenches and knew everything about everything. And she just happened to zoom out to take that role. So it seems like Jack is the same exact way. They know the insides of everything and they zoom out to, you know, be the CEO of stuff. That's the type of CEO it's going to take to, you know, create this, and with the teams, of course, create the innovation we need to have solid products that resonate with the consumer.
Again, we do too. So they'll take advantage of that. It's like Christmas Day for me, I'll tell you. I'm walking down the stairs and there's the Christmas tree.
We got to say, though, we got to give him credit. This has to be probably, in the history of me doing this stuff, the greatest acquisition of all time. And or the greatest merger, because I don't want to make it seem like he's just stuffing companies in a holding company. But this has to be the greatest move in terms of the audio company space I've ever seen, period. I don't know any greater company that has done anything like this.
And there's the presence under it. I'm so excited.
Well, thank you for taking.
And it just shows that it's going to go into the hands of people who care about the product and care about the people first. Everybody else who's just salesmen, and I'm not bashing the Native Instruments team because I don't know their leadership. But when you put the people first and you resonate with the people, that's who's going to control the long term of something. Okay, it's just like anything else. You know, I'm trying to think, like Bitcoin, for example. I'm not a Bitcoin expert, but imagine all the people who got into Bitcoin when it was first at 60K. They got into it when it was hyped up. Okay, then they rode it all the way up to 100K, and then it crashed on back to 60K. But the people who invested in Bitcoin way back when it was 10K a coin or 5K a coin, they're still holding for years and years and years because they are in the actual community of Bitcoin, you know, believers, or whatever they call them, diamond hands, golden hands, whatever it's called. Whereas everybody else was just paper hands. You know, they were just there for the hype, the marketing. Okay, so that's what separates a technical CEO from a marketing or a sales CEO who's just there to be just, you know, do all the hypey stuff and just bounce. Okay, so congratulations to Jack O'Donnell. Shout out to Andy Mack. Super dope interview. And, you know, I got to thank Weaver Beats for even making me aware of this interview. I wish he would have linked it in his video. But I got to say, my critique to Weaver Beats is you got to stop spreading negativity about stuff you don't comprehend. Everything is not bad news in this music industry. Okay, guys, you got to stop putting fear into these people. Okay, because you're hurting people. Okay, whether you know it or not. So subscribe if you're new. It's Game from BusyWorksBeats.com. Peace out, guys.